Like any other hobby, there is a whole host of equipment that you can get for soap making, but I'm just going to show you the basics and then towards the end tell you some of the specialist items that you can buy. Ideally, you should have separate equipment for soap making and not use it for food. All plastic containers, as well as older heat-safe glass containers that are scratched or worn, can take on the scent of soap-making fragrances or essential oils, tainting any food that is put in these containers afterwards, so it's best to keep these for soap making. For mixing your lye liquid and melting your oils, you can use containers made from heat-safe plastic, not the hard brittle plastic that you get in the dollar store, but this type of heat-safe plastic jug or bowl is perfect. You can use tempered glass like Pyrex. Some soap makers say that eventually lye can get into the glass and cause it to break, but I have never had that happen to me, although I only use Pyrex jugs. If you're worried, then use plastic ones. You can use stainless steel jugs, but never use aluminium, tin, iron, or Teflon coated containers. Aluminium will react with the lye and give off a toxic hydrogen gas, which is extremely flammable, and the heat generated from the lye will cause metal to get very hot. The lye will also tarnish all metals eventually. Make sure you use containers that are big enough to hold the total volume of your lye liquid and your oils, with room to mix. So don't fill your bowl or jug more than 2/3 full. You don't want spills that can burn you or ruin your countertops. These large plastic jugs from the dollar store are ideal. You can probably also find them in your local supermarket. I always buy bowls with a spout for easy pouring. I have a variety of sizes so that I have the right size for the batch that I'm making. Second-hand stores and thrift stores are also a great source for glassware, utensils, etc. Jugs with long spouts like these are really useful when creating elaborate designs, especially if you need to pour between dividers. You need utensils for stirring your mixture and for scraping your bowls and jugs. Don't use wooden utensils, as they will degrade over time, leaving splinters in your soap. I love these rubber or silicone spatulas. I got a set of 3, and I also have smaller sizes. I use stainless steel teaspoons for stirring my colors and additives. I just buy cheap ones and keep them for soap making. I keep a few handy when I'm making my soap. Measuring spoons are perfect for measuring colors, clays, exfoliants, and other additives. Small plastic, glass, or ceramic containers are useful for mixing colors and measuring oils. You can often pick these up cheaply in dollar stores or use small food packaging containers like these. You need some digital measuring scales. I use regular kitchen scales for this. Make sure that your scales will go up to a large enough weight in case you want to make large batches of soap. While you can use a hand whisk or egg beater to bring your soap to trace, a stick blender is much more practical, and it is quicker, easier, and more consistent, and it doesn't introduce a lot of air into your soap. They're not expensive, and I would recommend buying one just for soap making. The blenders that come in 2 parts are good, as you can take them apart and leave the beater end in the jug, which is not possible with the one-piece one, as it will cause your bowl or jug to tip over. I had this happen to me, and my batter went all over the table and the floor, which was a complete nightmare. You can't use a cake stand mixer, a food processor, or an electric whisk, or a magic bullet, as these will introduce too much air into your batter and spoil your soap. Also, with any electric whisk or beater, you run the risk of being splattered with batter and getting lye burns and damage to your surfaces. You need a thermometer to measure the temperature of your oils and your lye liquid. You don't want your ingredients to get scorched, and you don't want your soap to overheat and crack or volcano out of your mold. There are various types of thermometer, from your basic cooking thermometer to these gun type ones. I love the gun style design, as you don't have to dip it in the soap, so no need to wash it, and run the risk of the water damaging it, which happened to my skewer style digital thermometer. If you keep an eye out, you can often get these on sale. Mine was reduced from about $80 to about $20. You also need some hand beaters like these for mixing in colors and fragrances to avoid your batter tracing too fast when you want to create designs in your soap. These pipettes are not essential, but are very handy for measuring fragrances. They are inexpensive, and you can get them from cosmetic and essential oil suppliers. They're a fiddle to wash out, so I like to keep one per fragrance attached to the bottle with an elastic band. Chopsticks and skewers are the perfect swirling tool for creating fun designs. They're also useful for decorating the tops of your soaps. If you're going to use wooden or cardboard molds, you need to line them with freezer paper. You'll find this in your supermarket with the parchment paper and foil. It's also available on Amazon. This Reynolds one seems to be the most popular brand. You use it with the shiny side to the soap. If you can't find it, you can use parchment paper, although it tends to stick to the soap more and creates wrinkles. You can also use cling wrap or plastic bags, but it's hard to avoid wrinkles with these. You can't use waxed paper because the wax will flake off into your soap when it gets hot. You need a soap cutter of some sort. You can use a sharp knife, but I find that cutting with wire gives a much smoother, easier cut. I use either a cheese wire cutter, a small wooden cutter with a wire, or my big loaf mold cutter. Other additional items that are not essential but are nice to have are a mini mixer, which makes mixing your colors easier and more even. You can get these in grocery or kitchen stores. They're used for frothing milk in coffee. A soap beveler helps create a professional appearance on your soap by creating 45-degree angles on the edges of your bars. My soap cutter comes with one on the bottom of it. A fine mesh strainer is perfect for sprinkling mica over your soap. This is just a regular tea strainer. You can also use a mesh tea ball, but I prefer the open tea strainer. A spice or coffee grinder is useful for turning additives into powder, such as coffee, oats, and some colors. A pestle and mortar will also do the job. A cheese grater is good for grating old soap, to add confetti designs to your soap, or for rebatching. You can use a potato peeler to make soap curls to use as embeds or decorations. Isopropyl rubbing alcohol is good for preventing the formation of soda ash, especially on slab molds. Just spray the 99% version on your soap before it cures. While this seems like a long list, you may already have some spare kitchen equipment that you can use. And if not, you can start out simple and buy more equipment as you need it. With the exception of the scales, stick blender, and loaf cutter, most items can be found cheaply in supermarkets, dollar stores, or pound shops.